Hey, what is up, disc golfers? Today on Iceberg TV, I have a clip pulled up from Brodie Smith and Yuli's podcast. I think Brodie is getting to that point where he may retire from professional disc golf and move into the next step in his career. I pretty much, aside from maybe the last year or so, have covered Brodie Smith's disc golf career on this channel, and I was kind of rooting for him as a player to eventually come out and win an event. I thought it was going to be a tall hill to climb, but I thought eventually he would become a top tier player, and he eventually has. He's a very athletic guy, has a lot of Frisbee experience. I've covered most of his disc golf career on this channel up until about the last year. Brodie said some pretty raw stuff on their podcast, on their last episode. So yeah, I want to play the clip for you guys and give you guys my thoughts on some of the things he was saying.
This was the first time that I could not care less. I couldn't care less. And it was so hard. It was so difficult going out there, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I shot 10 under par or if I shot 10 over par. It didn't matter if I birdied a hole, I didn't birdie a hole. I legitimately just was not interested. I wasn't having fun. And I wrote on here that my favorite moment playing those 3 rounds was on hole 15. Tim Barham got one of his discs stuck in a tree, and I had to we started picking up rocks and trying to hit the disc out of the tree to get it to come down. That was the most fun I had the entire week, was trying to hit this disc out of this tree. And so I'm in this weird spot.
Just to cut Brodie off for 1 second, this is something I've actually gone through myself. I've literally been at a tournament and I've asked myself the question mid-round, what the heck am I doing here right now? You have 2 options when you ask yourself this question. You can face the problem head on, do better, fix your mindset, and sort it out, or decide that you want to displace yourself from the situation. And it sounds like Brodie just kind of went through the motions, but it sounds like he should have just DNF'd and saved himself a lot of the ill feelings that wound up following the event and that came during the rest of the event. If Brodie doesn't want to be there, Brodie should drop out of the event and not be there. I think short term it may look bad, but to start repairing his relationship with disc golf, if he doesn't feel like he wants to be there, Brodie's role for Discraft is to not to win events. It's to sell Frisbees, and Brodie's really good at selling Frisbees. So I think if Brodie does not want to be at an event, he can do exactly what I did, and I have DNF'd from an event. This has happened at least twice. I've just straight up walked off the course mid-round. I talked to my card mates. I said, hey, I'm just really not feeling it today. Today's not my day. I'm not having a good time. I don't want to bring you guys down. And I walked off the course. And in the moment, you don't feel good about it. But doing that and knowing yourself well enough, that can be a really powerful tool to just know yourself well enough to walk off the course in that given moment. And again, in the immediate moment, it may not seem like the right thing to do, but I'm a lot more likely to sign up for events in the future and then show up that day. And I know myself well enough to know that I want to be there that day. And it took walking off the course a couple of times mid-round to get to that level. But yeah, I think Brodie probably should have just walked off the course instead of just going through the motions for the rest of the event.
I have never chased money, right? I've never made decisions in my life to try to make more money, because at the end of the day, I always wanted to do something that I was passionate about. And if I put my time and effort into something that I'm super passionate about, I will be successful in that. I will work myself in a way to become successful in that. And I think if you look at disc golf, I feel like I have done that already, right? I have seen some success, not as much as I wanted, obviously, but I have seen some success at tournaments. We have a very successful podcast. Foundation is extremely successful. Atlas is extremely successful. So there's parts of disc golf that I have found success in. I'm trying to figure out what is going on, because I honestly don't have an answer. I don't know what to do. And it's
one thing that I'd like to touch on with this particular part of the conversation is success is something that looks different for everybody. Being successful can mean making money. It can be winning a trophy. It can be winning an internal personal battle. It can be overcoming your fears. Brodie needs to figure out what his X factor is, and until he can identify his X factor, he's going to continue having this same empty feeling when it comes to his relationship with disc golf. And if he cannot find an X factor, then he is not going to want to play disc golf, and he is going to retire, and he's going to move on to the next thing. When you're brand new to something, the X factor that motivates you is, I'm getting better. This is fun. This is new. But that doesn't last forever. And once you finally get good at something and you start to become a master of that craft, you need to set new goals. You need to find new motivation. You need to find something that's going to fulfill that want. That we all have it in our mind. We all have it in our heart that we want to get better. Like Brodie said, we want to be successful. Most of us, when it comes to our hobbies and our passions, we have an X factor that's motivating us. For a lot of people, it's money. For Brodie, he claims it's not money. So he needs to figure out what that X factor is, or eventually we're just going to completely lose Brodie off the Pro Tour entirely.
It's a weird one because I've never had this issue before. I've never had an issue of where I haven't been dedicated, motivated, passionate to chase after a goal. And so it was a weird tournament. And I don't know if people could sense that when they were out there watching me, but you know, I ended up birdieing like hole 1 on round 2 and round 3. And it was just like, you know, I would just pick the disc out of the basket and like start walking to hole 2. It was almost if I was just ready for it to be done. And the thing that's the weird, and I can't figure it out, is like, this has never happened before. I've never had this happen before with anything. Normally it's always like some sort of injury, something is causing me not to continue to follow my passion. Like something is prohibiting me from doing that. And I don't know if I'm at the age now of where like leaving Kelsey all the time is tough or what, but like I legitimately just did not enjoy playing disc golf this past weekend. And it was a tough realization to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a classic case of burnout to me, honestly. I mean, it's pretty simple. We've all had those things. Like I've been playing for 17 years now, Brodie, and I've had months and months and months of feeling that way of like, why am I here? I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And just kind of going through the motions. But what it comes down to for me, and I can only speak for myself, is I've always had goals that I want to reach, and those goals come before everything for me.
And that is the answer right there. That's the difference between Brodie and Yuli. Yuli has the X factor. That guy wants to win a major just as much as he did however long he's been playing 15 years ago. Yuli has had one goal, and it is to win a major. It's to perform on tour. And if he eventually does that, then you have another mental battle. How do you want for more once you've already hit the highest level? And that's what's so special about Paul McBeth, is he wins again and again and again and again. And reigniting that fire and that passion once you've gotten there is not always easy. So finding that X factor is something that is a skill that you develop. And I think Yuli's giving Brodie extremely good advice.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter. If I set a goal, and I was taught this a long time ago, if I set an ultimate goal, then that's just what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to stop until I get that ultimate goal. That's the way that I work. Through that time, you're going to have burnout, because waking up and practicing and all that stuff it sucks. Like you said, sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's great to get up and, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to do that stuff. For me, what I found is the days where you don't want to do it, finding a way to get it done, once you reach some of those goals, makes it feel a lot better. So the burnout happens, and sometimes it's good to take a break. Dude, I've taken multiple times in my career, I've taken 3-4 months off of the main tour events and just been like, okay, I'm not going to California. I don't feel it. I can't do it.
See, that's why I thought I did this off season though. See, I probably played disc golf. I probably threw or putted disc golf for less than like 8 hours this off season.
That's not the same thing, Brodie. What I'm saying is, you take time off of playing tournaments and you watch other people playing the tournaments, it'll get you back to be
I just want to pause it here. There's a few things that I think are really interesting here. When you don't put in the work, you have no skin in the game and you have no reason to be motivated. If Brodie put in 1,000 hours of putting, throwing, field work, C tiers, he would be ready, he would feel ready, and even if he just pushed through the burnout, he would have those jitters in his stomach, he would be nervous, he would be like, man, I put so much work into this. He would be a lot more ready than he is right now. And I think not playing and not persevering, through this problem that he's having, he's under contract, he has to play. He definitely probably should have practiced more during the off season. Again, it's a bit of an experiment on his end. Like, do you go all in and practice all the time, or do you just completely step away? And he chose to completely step away for the entire off season. Obviously, now that we're going into the season, we realize that didn't work. So Brodie needs to find another way to have skin in the game, find that X factor, and reignite that fire. And if he's unable to do that, then he should just step away from the sport, in my opinion.
Being motivated. You're going to see them playing, you're going to watch them competing, and you're going to either want to go back or you're not. And once you don't want to go compete against those guys, when you see them out there and you see the courses that you've played good at before and you're sitting at home, eventually you're going to be like, no, I missed the competition. I want to do that. Or you find something else. Like that's always a thing as well.
Yeah, David just made a comment, and I think this is where if you have followed me from the very beginning, if you have followed me from my ultimate career, my trick shots, if you follow me from the very beginning, you will know that I literally do stuff because I love doing it. And David just said, sounds like it's turned into a job and not a passion anymore. I have put so much work into my passions, and I have honestly, because I think there is a lot of luck to be involved, right?
I think this is something that also limits, the best in the world from the elite. There's a level there where you just need to be mentally different than the rest of your peers. Someone like Brodie, who's out there because he loves it, that is so much different than someone like Ricky. Not only does Ricky love it, but Ricky would, I feel like, rather die than not give his 100% effort into it. And that's the biggest difference between the most fieriest of competitors, like the Michael Jordans, the Stephen Currys, like players like Paul McBeth, like Ricky Wysocki. These players have a chip on their shoulder. They play like they're willing to play angry. They put all this work into it. They put all this passion into it, and there's that fire there. Doing it just because you enjoy it and you love it is awesome, but it's not going to get you to be the number one best player, and it's not going to put you in a position to win at Pro Tour events. It's not going to put you in a position to win majors, and eventually that love for something is going to slightly diminish. Again, it always boils down to what is that X factor, and those top of the line players, they're just mental monsters, and they find a way to always stay motivated. Michael Jordan used to make up things about other players. He would make things up and say, oh, this guy talked trash to me, and the player didn't even say anything about him, but then he would go into the game against that player and absolutely obliterate them. And he would convince himself that this person has been talking trash about him for months when that person never even said anything. So the best of the best do these things to come out and fight their hardest. And I think just having a love for the game sometimes isn't always enough.
I can just be done. Me and Kelsey can just, delete all our social media, and just no one will see us ever again, and we can just be done, and we're fine. And
this is the last point that I want to touch on. If you want to watch the rest of the clip, I'll post this in the description down below. But this is the last thing that kind of resonated with me. Having enough money to retire. Again, Paul McBeth has the money to retire. Ricky Wysocki has the money to retire. Yuli probably has the money to retire. But these guys, their legacy matters to them. If Yuli was satisfied with his legacy, he would do exactly what Nate Doss did and retire. If he was satisfied with his legacy, he wouldn't be competing week over week. These guys are not satisfied with their legacy, and they want to leave something special behind. Again, that's another X factor. Brodie does, obviously, given this mindset, does not have the same X factor as all of the greatest players. So it's going to be really difficult for him to become one of the greatest players. Again, he made it on tour. I think at one point he was a top 20 player in the world. I think that's just due to his physical gifts and his Frisbee experience, and he worked really hard. But to be the best, you gotta have that extra gear, and I just don't necessarily think at this point in his career Brodie has the extra gear. But I thought this clip was really interesting. If you guys would like to see more news updates and, you know, hear my thoughts on the things that are going on in the sport of disc golf, that was kind of the basis of what this channel was all about. It's not something I do too much anymore. I just have been doing a lot more form work, getting out on the course, getting ready to play events again, just enjoying disc golf in my own way, reviewing discs, Weird Stuff Wednesdays, all this stuff. But I do enjoy giving my thoughts on this kind of stuff. But if you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comment section down below. You guys are watching Iceberg TV, and take care.